How much do you pay in rent? What are your utility bills like? Is food expensive? How much does it actually cost to live in El Salvador? Hey guys, it's Carol. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about monthly budget expenses, utilities, rent, food. How much does it cost to actually live in El Salvador? And while that amount can vary greatly depending on income and expectations, what I can offer you is my personal experience. As someone who's lived here for 10 years and through a wide variety of experiences, from employed to unemployed to self-employed, and from going from 1 kid to 3 kids. One thing to note before we get started is that El Salvador actually uses the US dollar as its national currency. So we're going to be using that as our reference point, obviously. So let's kick it off with utilities. And the first thing on the list is water. Water is actually really reasonable here in El Salvador because it's offered through a government agency called ONDA. We pay approximately $3 a month in water. Now that's with having a yard that we water, a washer, we do all of our laundry in-house, and a family of 5 who takes multiple showers a day. Next on the list is electricity. Now electricity is offered through a few different companies and the rates will vary based on the economy of the neighborhood. So to put that into perspective, back when we lived in Escalon, our home cost about $200 a month in electricity. Now that house did have hot water and it had an AC. Now we currently live just outside of the city in La Libertad, and our electricity is $120 a month on average. Now keep in mind this is during the pandemic, so it has increased greatly. It used to be about $70 a month. Okay, now this house does not have hot water because you don't need it here in El Salvador. It does not have an AC. We do, however, have ceiling fans that are on 24/7. We have all electrical appliances. Our stove is electric. Some people utilize gas stoves here in El Salvador. That will decrease your electricity cost. Okay. We also run electronic devices all day long. Okay. We work online, both my husband and I. Our children currently go to school online thanks to the pandemic, and we live online. We're always online. So we're always utilizing a lot of electricity. We're a big tech-loving family. So speaking of being online all the time, that brings us to our next expense, which is going to be cable and internet. Now this is offered by multiple different companies, but there are 3 major companies that offer these. And they usually offer them as a bundle in a package with the Wi-Fi, the cable, and the landline. Now we previously paid $40 a month for our internet package, and that included about 60 cable channels, and our internet was between 5 and 15 megabytes. However, during quarantine, the internet was getting a little bit slow with us all pulling on it at the same time, so we recently upgraded our package. We now pay $80 a month for internet and cable. That includes about 146 cable channels, and our internet increased to 50 megabytes. We also get 3 cable boxes, even though we only have 2 TVs. Most of these companies offer cell phone services as well, so you can elect to do a postpaid option through them and add that to your package. I, however, choose to do the prepaid cell phone services because I utilize Wi-Fi most of the time and only spend about $5 on saldo a month, which is the credit for prepaid phone usage. Next on the list is Netflix and Disney Plus. Now, while these are obviously optional expenses, we find them very useful with 3 children, okay? And I want to point out that they are available here in El Salvador as an option. Netflix came here a few years back, and Disney Plus became available in El Salvador 3 months ago. The rates, I believe, are the exact same as they are in the States. Netflix is $11.99 a month, it just increased. Disney Plus is $5.99 a month. I do want to point out that while it's available here in El Salvador, not all the same shows are available. We don't have American Horror Story series or the Blockbusters documentary that just dropped, unfortunately. I believe that's due to copyright issues from country to country. But Netflix, if you hear me, please put American Horror Story on El Salvador's list. Please, please, please. Okay, next on the list we have rent. Now this is a big one and it varies greatly depending on location and your expectations. It can be anywhere from around $80 a month or less to $2,000 a month or more. Now for us personally, we have lived in 6 different homes in the past 10 years here in El Salvador, and we have paid anywhere from between $500 a month in rent to $1,400 a month in rent. We are currently living in my favorite house of all 6, and it is the biggest house. It is the best layout. It has the best neighborhood. I never want to leave. And ironically, it's the cheapest of all of the houses. We pay $500 a month for rent currently. I love my home. Please let me know if you want a house tour. I'd be happy to take you around. Let me know in the comments down below. Now, one of the ways that Salvadorians cut down the cost of rent is they tend to live in family units here. It's very common to see multi-generational families within a home. Adult children living with their parents or grandparents until they are married and or can afford to move out on their own. Unlike the US, where there's a social stigma for some reason of people over the age of 18 living with their parents, which tends to get you in financial crisis really early on. Here in El Salvador, people stay together. Family is the most important thing. And so there's no need to move out before you are ready. It's brilliant. US, take notes. Next up, you guys, we got food. Now this will vary greatly between family to family based on a few factors, just like anywhere in the world. What is your income? How many mouths do you have to feed? What are your food tastes? And do you like to eat out? Can you cook? But for us personally, we tend to spend about $150 a week on groceries. This may seem like a lot to some people, and it may seem like a very low amount to other people. But for us, it's just what we found have worked. We are a family of 5 people and 2 large dogs. Okay, so that does add a bit of expense. We tend to cut down some of our expenses by not eating out very often. We eat pupusas every Sunday night, and we eat out one other time a week usually, whether it be McDonald's or one of the restaurants you see us eat at in one of our vlogs. Now, most of our food we make at home from scratch. There's not a lot of pre-made, pre-frozen foods, not a lot of things from cans. I'll make my beans from dry beans. I make my rice from dry rice. What a concept, right? It's all something I had to learn once I moved here because Carol in the States bought most things frozen and pre-packaged. But it's been a blast and it helps cut down the costs and it's a lot healthier for you. We do cut down on a lot of our expenses by buying things like vegetables and seafood at the Mercado instead of at the supermarket. I'll link my video on the Mercado down below so you can check that out and see what we were able to get for $20. It's delicious. We also buy our meat from the butcher and our cheese and dairy products from the Lactaria usually. Now in our family, we do eat a mix of traditional Salvadorian food and traditional gringo food. So one of my splurge items is peanut butter. Imports are definitely more expensive. Next on the list, we have schools. Now this may not be a monthly expense for you because A, you may not have children, or B, you may choose to send your children to public school, which is entirely free here in El Salvador. But if you plan to send your children to a bilingual school, you will need to make sure to budget for this. Now, the cost of schools varies greatly, even more than rent. You can expect to pay anywhere between $100 to $500 a month per child. So this adds up really quickly when you have 3 kids like we do. Okay, the rates do vary based on location, methodology, languages spoken, and diplomas offered. For example, the French school here offers a diploma in both France and El Salvador, and they will speak in English, Spanish, and French. And usually, you'll pick up a 4th language there as well. But it all depends. There's many options available for you. This was the most unexpected expense, though, I had moving here, because with 3 children, tuition can easily add up to more than your rent. Last but not least, we have transportation. Now, if you choose to buy a new car in El Salvador, the expense will likely be very similar to the cost of a new car in the States. You can, however, choose to buy a used car in El Salvador much more economically than you might find in the States. The reason for that being is we tend to import a lot of cars from the States that have been in what the insurance in the States considers a total wreck. The car has been totaled, meaning the cost to repair it is more than the cost of the value of the car. That is, however, not true here in El Salvador. So we import them in and then fix them because it's a lot more reasonable to fix a car here in El Salvador. So, for example, the car that we currently drive is one of these cars. It was in a wreck in the States, imported into El Salvador, and fixed up here. So we were able to get a really good deal on our car. We bought it 4 years ago, and it has been fabulous. So gas here is currently anywhere between $2.90 and $3.15 a gallon. I'm not sure where that stands reasonably right now. Let me know, comment down below what gas costs per gallon in your area. You do also have a public transportation option here in El Salvador. We have buses, Ubers, and taxis. The one thing I do want to point out is that buses are privately owned here in El Salvador, unlike the US where it is a government-run institution. So the type of transportation that you receive depends on who picks you up. The prices are very economical and often very crowded. So these are our monthly expenses living here in El Salvador. While they may not be everyone's, I hope it helps give you a general idea of what you can expect to pay out on a monthly basis. El Salvador is a small country, but it packs a big punch. You can be at the beach, the mountains, or the city all within a half an hour. The weather is always perfect. And of course, family always comes first. So while living in El Salvador isn't free, for me, it's priceless.